Howdy, boys and girls. Welcome to fifth grade social studies. Today we will be discussing our performance assessment, which is writing a letter on behalf of the colonial patriots to a loyalist in an attempt to persuade them to join your cause. So today our objective is I can write a persuasive letter meeting criteria given a rubric. I will use the kernel essay strategy to complete my letter, and I will include a greeting opening, a body, and a closing with a signature. So let's go ahead and get started. So today we are going to focus on writing a letter attempting to persuade a loyalist to join the cause for the Patriots. Now, we will include all three reasons for our cause. In our rubric, it states that in writing the persuasive letter, we have to include three pieces, right? The first is include what the British government has done to upset the colonists. The second is why you feel like you have to fight against the British. And the last is how your life has become increasingly more difficult because of the British. Now, we are going to be using something called the kernel essay. The kernel essay is a strategy designed to scaffold the writing process for students who may struggle or just need that extra help to complete a writing assignment. To begin a letter, we always include the greeting or the who we are writing the letter to. In this case, we are writing a letter to a loyalist who is living in the colonies. This could be a general greeting or to someone specific. For example, for my letter, my example, I chose to write to Mr. Light. This is a character from the Johnny Tremaine movie that we recently watched in class. Again, the kernel essay allows us to give an example to our students to either have them copy, replicate, or an idea of what they could use when they choose their own. So in my example, I choose Mr. Light. I would tell my students, now you choose someone that you think would be someone you'd want to write to. It could be a fictional person, it could be a made up name, it could be someone from our readings, anyone who they know is a loyalist or a colonial loyalist, those who are loyal to Britain. Again, I chose Mr. Light, a character I know that my students are very familiar with because we discussed him in great detail after watching the movie Johnny Tremaine. The second part is the body. Now, this is the most important piece of a letter. The body gives us the meat, so to speak. So, in a persuasive letter, you must be convincing and you have to be able to support your opinions on why you feel the way you do. In our rubric, we had the 3 points that I spoke of earlier. What have the British done to upset the colonists? Why do you feel the need to fight the British? And how has your life become increasingly more difficult because of what the British have done? In addition to this, you should also have an opening paragraph, what I like to call the why I'm writing you paragraph. This gives the reason for your letter. So your letter should have at least 4 paragraphs addressing each of these reasons with that opening paragraph. Now, with the kernel essay, I will be giving an example or a starter for each of my paragraphs so that my students will have an idea of what I mean. For this assessment, I will be giving the example and I will be giving my students instructions that they are not allowed to duplicate my example, but they may use my example as a reference or a base, a place to start. They can change the words, they can get an idea from that example. Okay, so I'm also going to be telling my students that in each of their paragraphs, they need at least 3 sentences. They could have more as long as each sentence remains on topic. So paragraph 1, this is the reason for the letter. And I always tell my students, don't forget to indent. I know third and fourth grade teachers have tricks that they have taught their students, and as I have my own, I will do a quick refresher on what indenting means and so forth. So here's my example, my starter that I will be sharing with my students. I am writing to you today to ask that you please consider joining the Patriots of the 13 colonies. There are several reasons you should be one of us. This is again an example. I will give my students instruction. You may take this example, change the words around to make it fit your idea or what you think the reasons they should join your cause. Again, this is a scaffold kernel to the kernel essay. We call it a kernel. This is a starter. Again, this is my first paragraph or my reason for the letter. Now, the second paragraph will be reason number 1 of our argument. And so the example I would give my students is, it seems that in these trying times, the British have continued to overtax us on all products we need on a daily basis. Now, if we go back to our rubric, the rubric was explain what the British have done to upset the colonists. In all of our reading and all of our videos and all of our discussions, the overtaxation of the colonies by the British was the main driving force that caused the colonies to become upset. And again, this is a starter. I would give other examples probably in this case, um, to allow my students a chance to develop their own ideas, but this is my starter. Again, I would say, it seems that in these trying times, the British have continued to overtax us on all the products we need on a daily basis. Now, paragraph 3 would be the second reason for our argument. So my starter would be, oh, and I did forget to indent here, but my starter would be, we are being treated poorly and must fight back because, remember in our rubric, it was the reason you felt that you need to be fighting back. So for my starter, I would tell my students, we are being treated poorly and must fight back because. Again, I would tell them they cannot duplicate this kernel. However, they can reword it, change the wording to meet their own needs. And then we have paragraph 4. This is the final reason for our argument. Um, my starter, and again, I did not indent, but I will make sure that I tell the students to indent. I would say the British has overtaxed us so much that our lives have become so much more difficult because. And if you remember back in the rubric, the third criteria was, what had the British done to make your life so much more difficult? And this is what I would say. Again, this is a stem or a kernel. The students will be instructed to reword it or use this as an idea, but they are not allowed to duplicate my stem because I don't want to read 100 of my opening stems for each paragraph on every student's assignment. Now, this paragraph could also include your closing statement, such as, we very much hope you give thought to joining our cause because. Um, I leave this optional for the students. I always ask them to put a conclusion sentence in, a thank you for your time, things like that. Thank you for your consideration. And I will also allow them to uh, build on that or expand on that if they feel they need to close their paragraph or their letter to this loyalist. Now, I will say that um, when the students are writing this concluding paragraph, it's very important to remind them to stay on topic because this paragraph has a potential to allow the students to very much get off topic. And so I would remind them to make sure they are on topic here. And then finally, we have our closing and our signature. Now, there are an infinite amount of choices for a closing. We've all written letters, and I'm sure the students have seen letters with a closing. Some examples are, best regards is one of my favorites. Yours truly, sincerely, the best intentions, um, or some words that show some respect for your audience. Finally, the students should also be instructed that they need to sign their letter. Now, I know in fourth grade last year, it was a crazy year, but last year the students were expected to write in cursive, and so I would ask that my students do sign their name in cursive, and I would probably offer them some support with this, helping them with the letters and doing so, just because it adds some legitimacy or some detail to their letter. Um, and this is the kernel essay. Now, I would like to reiterate that the whole purpose and idea behind the kernel essay is to scaffold this. So if you do see students who need more support, it's absolutely okay to allow them to use your stems or your starters. I just prefer to have my students use my starters as examples and not allow them to duplicate. But I do understand that there are those students that do need that extra support, and so there's nothing wrong with allowing them to use that starter if it gives them some support they need to complete this activity. Um, but this is a kernel essay. Um, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me, and I can answer those questions for you or give you more examples. Good luck with your persuasive letter. I am super excited to read them. Best of luck to you, and we'll see you soon.